What would you do if that uneasy feeling in your chest wasn't paranoia, but your intuition trying to protect your future? Stay with me, because today I'm going to give you the clearest, most strategic breakdown you've ever heard about how infidelity actually shows up in behavior long before it explodes in your face. I'm not here to entertain you, I'm here to arm you. You'll learn how to separate emotion from evidence, how to read patterns instead of clinging to excuses, and how to confront with calm authority instead of chaos. We'll draw on real behavioral science, relationship research, and field-tested strategy so you don't waste months living in confusion while your standards evaporate. Listen closely, because the last two behaviors complete the picture and tell you exactly what to do next if 3 or more signs cluster at the same time. Before we go into the 10 behaviors, establish 2 rules that protect your judgment. First, the baseline rule. People are different. You cannot interpret change without knowing what is normal for her. Has she always been private with her phone? Always worked late? Always trained hard at the gym? Baseline first, then deviations. Second, the cluster rule. One behavior alone proves nothing. Cheating is a pattern, not a moment. When 3 or more of these behaviors change at the same time and stay changed for a few weeks, you take it seriously. This is how investigators, therapists, and even deception researchers approach anomalies. They look for consistent clusters, not isolated blips. Keep those 2 rules in your pocket, and keep your center of gravity. Stoicism matters here. Control your response, not her behavior. A strong man observes, verifies, then decides. Here is the first behavior. She suddenly upgrades her privacy and guards her devices like they're a bank vault. Not normal, I value my privacy. I'm talking about abrupt password changes, new lock screens, the phone face down on the table, taking calls in another room, AirPods suddenly glued to her ears for quick conversations, and a pattern of stepping away when messages come in. Deception research doesn't give you a magic tell, but changes in access to information are significant because they shift the power dynamic. Secrecy is the oxygen of an affair. The key word is sudden. If she always had high privacy, that's her baseline. But if openness used to be easy and now it's friction every time you're near her phone or laptop, that is a meaningful deviation. Your move is disciplined. Don't accuse. State the change you've observed, attach it to a time frame, and ask an open question. Over the last 3 weeks, I've noticed you take every call in the hallway and you changed your passcode. What's up? You're not begging. You're not interrogating. You're establishing that you notice patterns and you address them calmly. Second behavior, she diverts investment, time, attention, effort, away from the relationship, and her schedule develops fog. In long-term studies on commitment, investment predicts stability. The more time, energy, and shared plans you have, the more committed you tend to be. When someone starts cheat path behavior, that investment subtly reassigns to a new source of stimulation. You'll see more girls' nights that don't include details. A calendar that can't be planned with you but is somehow always booked for others. Vague explanations with sharp defensiveness when you ask specifics, and cancellations that increasingly land on time you previously protected together. You're not tracking every minute, that's insecurity, but you are noticing shifts in availability and responsiveness. If this coincides with a sudden resistance to planning anything 2 to 4 weeks out, that matters. People who know what they're building can plan. People who are splitting attention keep things flexible. Your move is structure without control. Every Thursday used to be ours. For the last month, that window keeps disappearing. I need predictability to feel connected. What can we set that is non-negotiable each week? If she can't or won't co-create consistent time anymore, you've learned something without using a single accusation. Third behavior, her sexual pattern changes sharply. Either an abrupt drop in desire and responsiveness, or, paradoxically, a temporary spike with unfamiliar intensity and novelty. This is where men misread the map. A decrease can happen because desire is being met elsewhere or because emotional disconnection is growing. But a sudden increase can happen too. Novelty elsewhere can spill over into the existing relationship as a cover or as overflow arousal. You might notice new techniques that have no clear origin, rigid rules around when sex can happen and when it can't, or the introduction of barriers, like a new insistence on separate showers before intimacy that didn't exist before. Another clue, Desire that is hot-cold with no relational cause, combined with the other signs on this list. Your move is high EQ clarity. Our intimacy shifted fast this month, either off or unusually different without any conversation. I want connection that's honest, not performance. What's changed for you sexually? If you can't talk about sex, you can't keep it healthy. A strong frame invites truth. Fourth behavior. Emotional withdrawal paired with contempt microexpressions. The most dangerous predictor in relationship research isn't anger, it's contempt. Eye-rolling, sarcasm that belittles, a subtle, "you're beneath me" energy, and a pattern of turning away from your bids for connection. Little requests for attention or affection are red flags when they arrive as a bundle. Cheating requires an internal story that justifies the betrayal. One common path is to devalue you first, so the mind can rationalize the transgression. You'll feel the chill, short replies, a 2-second attention span when you talk about your day, the smile reserved for her phone, but never for you, kindness for strangers, but irritation for you. Your move is to hold your line with dignity. Lately when I share, I get sarcasm and eye rolls. That's disrespect. I won't participate in a dynamic that treats me like an annoyance. If something is wrong between us, let's name it. You're making the environment too honest for betrayal to breathe. Contempt can't survive clean confrontation for long. It has to morph, confess, or exit. Fifth behavior. Her stories sprout inconsistencies and unnecessary detail. People think liars avoid detail. Often the opposite happens. They pad the narrative with irrelevant specifics to make it feel sturdy. Then, because it's fabricated, the story shifts on retell. You ask how the evening was and you get a mini novel with oddly precise, emotionally empty details. Then 2 days later, the timeline doesn't match. Or you ask a simple question, and the answer is oddly defensive. Why do you always assume the worst, when you hadn't assumed anything? Another signal is what deception researchers call cognitive load tells. The harder it is to protect the lie, the slower and more strained the delivery becomes. Your move is neutral curiosity with timestamps. On Friday you said you left at 11:30. Yesterday you mentioned the Uber at midnight. Help me understand the exact timeline. You're not playing detective, you're making the conversation precise. The truth is congruent. Lies wobble under specificity. Sixth behavior. An accelerated self-reinvention focused on external display. New wardrobe out of nowhere, a sharp change in makeup or hair, gym intensity that coincides with secrecy elsewhere, and a sudden obsession with selfies or angles she never cared about. People can evolve, and you should support growth. But when the makeover arrives alongside the other signs, especially secrecy, schedule fog, and emotional distance, it can signal that someone new has become an audience she cares about impressing. You'll notice she's dressing up for places that never required it before. Or she leaves casual with you and returns styled from dropping by somewhere else. Your move is win-win. Celebrate growth while clarifying the relationship standard. I love that you're leveling up your style. I want us to level up together. Let's plan a date that matches this energy. If there's resistance to sharing the new look with you, or enthusiasm for showing it everywhere but with you, that gap is information. Seventh behavior. Digital traces that point to hidden channels. You are not a spy, and you're not crossing legal or ethical lines. But shared life creates shared rhythms. If you used to tag each other freely, and she suddenly treats your relationship like a secret online, if she keeps her phone permanently on silent around you but not around others, if new apps or secondary messaging platforms appear, if there are late-night do not disturb windows that never existed before, these are signals. Another clue. She used to send you quick updates unprompted. Now she goes dark for long stretches, but somehow remains active on social media. This isn't about counting minutes. It's about noticing behavioral mismatches. Your move is boundary conversation, not surveillance. Transparency is a standard for me. I'm not asking for access to everything, but I expect visible partnership, not a secret identity when I'm in the room. What does transparency look like for you? You want alignment, not control. If transparency feels threatening to her, ask why. Cheating thrives where accountability is framed as oppression. Healthy adults call it respect. Eighth behavior. Social circle shifts and strategic gatekeeping. Pay attention to the new friend who appears often in conversation but never materializes in real life. The colleague you're never invited to meet. The friend group whose events suddenly exclude you for vague reasons. And the friend who becomes her enthusiastic alibi. People who step into affairs often create a micro-ecosystem that protects it. Friends who won't ask questions, locations that feel safe, and narratives that justify the secrecy. Another sign, her closest friend's energy towards you changes. Overly sweet or abruptly cold, as if they know something they won't say. Your move is elegant pressure on the system, not the person. I'd like to meet the people you're spending time with. Let's set a dinner. If you get consistent resistance and you're pushed to the perimeter of her social world, that's not a partnership. That's a compartment. A loyal partner integrates you. She doesn't quarantine you from her life. Ninth behavior. Defensive aggression and projection. There's a well-documented psychological pattern where a person who is betraying you accuses you first. It's preemptive. It creates moral fog. She may suddenly become paranoid about your perfectly normal actions, demand to check your phone, or throw angry accusations when you bring up basic needs. You'll also see conversational tactics like deflecting from her behavior to your tone, or flipping blame so that your concern becomes the crime. If you're not grounded, you'll waste weeks apologizing for asking sane questions. Your move is calm boundary, no drama. I'm not discussing my tone while I'm asking about a specific pattern. We can talk tone when we finish the original topic. I'm asking about why Thursday nights disappeared and why your stories don't match. Refuse emotional bait. Don't shout. Don't beg. Don't chase. Authority is quiet and specific. Projection shrivels when it can't drag you into chaos. 10th behavior, logistics anomalies. Money, transport, and micro-routines that stop making sense. Cheating lives in logistics. Rides that don't match destinations. Expenses that don't fit habits. Sudden cash withdrawals when she never used cash before. New travel routes home. A dead phone pattern that repeats at the same time every week. Again, don't become a forensic accountant. Become a man who notices and asks clean questions. We agreed on transparency with finances. I'm seeing new charges at times that weren't on your schedule. Walk me through them. The point isn't to police her movement. The point is to refuse a relationship where reality is flexible. Two healthy adults can explain where they were without acting persecuted. Now listen carefully. When 3 or more of these behaviors change together and remain changed, you must step into decisive leadership. Leadership doesn't mean accusation. It means process. You are going to set a frame, ask for the truth, and either repair with clarity or exit with dignity. Here's the process I want you to use, and I want you to replay this part if you need to memorize it. Start with presence. Breathe deep in private, yes, but when you sit down with her, hold eye contact and slow your voice. You're not here to catch, you're here to clarify. Open with observation timeframe impact. Over the last 6 weeks, I've observed 3 changes that matter to me. You're guarding your phone and taking calls away from me. Our Thursday routine disappeared without a replacement, and your stories about Friday night don't match. I feel disconnected and disrespected. I'm asking for the truth. Notice what I did. I didn't call her names. I didn't compare her to anyone else. I didn't say always or never. I referenced a time frame and concrete patterns. This moves the conversation out of fog and into facts. Next, make space for a complete answer. Silence can be your ally. People reveal more when you resist the urge to fill the air. If she deflects, repeat the frame. I'm not discussing my tone. I'm asking about the patterns I listed. I'm here for honesty. If she gaslights, suggesting you imagined everything, hold the baseline. I track patterns for a living. My memory is fine. I value truth over comfort. If she confesses, do not explode. The next 10 minutes decide whether the next 6 months are wasted or redeemed. You will not accept blame for her choice, but you also won't turn this into theater. Say this: thank you for telling me. This breaks our agreement. Here's what I need to consider repair. Full disclosure of the timeline, a health check for both of us, 0 contact with the other person, shared transparency for a period we agree on, and couples work with a professional. If you can't commit to those steps, I won't continue. That is masculine leadership without violence. You're not negotiating your dignity. If she denies but your cluster is strong, you have two options. Option 1. You set non-negotiables and observe. Whether or not you admit anything, here are my standards: a weekly non-negotiable date, shared visibility on plans, and no secret channels. If we can't hold those, we aren't aligned. Option 2. You detach. Detachment isn't childish silence, it's adult distance. You reduce access to your time, your money, and your emotional labor while you decide. You're not punishing, you're protecting the frame. Cheating is asymmetry. You restore symmetry by stepping back until truth or exit emerges. I also want to inoculate you against two traps that destroy men in this situation. The first trap is fantasy reconstruction, trying to become whatever you imagine the other guy is. Don't do it. You don't shapeshift to compete for your own relationship. You improve because you're a man with high standards, not because you're scrambling for validation. The second trap is surveillance addiction, using tracking, monitoring, and spying to soothe anxiety. That becomes your prison. It also turns you into a man you won't respect. Set clear standards, yes. Ask clean questions, yes. But remember the stoic truth: you control your actions, not another person's integrity. Your power is in how quickly you move from confusion to clarity to consequence. Let's sharpen your judgment with a simple diagnostic you can run on yourself. Ask 3 questions. 1. Is this change sudden relative to her baseline? 2. Does this change make the relationship harder to plan and predict? 3. When I bring this up, do I get clarity or do I get contempt and chaos? If the answer is yes, harder chaos, then your risk is high. If you get a clean explanation that matches facts and behavior returns to normal, you adjust. But you don't live in limbo. Now, because I want you prepared, I'm going to give you practical language for each behavior, so you never again sit there wondering, what do I even say? For the privacy spike. I don't share a life with secrets. Your sudden privacy shift doesn't work for me. What changed? For the investment drop, I need weekly non-negotiable time together. Name the day. For sexual volatility, our intimacy is different and unspoken. I'm asking you to be honest about your desire and boundaries, no performance, real connection. For contempt, eye-rolling and sarcasm or disrespect. Stop or tell me what's going on. For inconsistent stories, your Friday timeline doesn't match. Give me the exact sequence, times, and people. For external makeover plus secrecy, I love your growth, share it with me. If you can't, what are you hiding? For digital shifts, partnership means visible partnership. I won't be a secret when I'm in the room. For social gatekeeping, I want to meet the people who matter to you. Set the dinner. For projection, I'm not discussing accusations about me while I'm asking about your behavior. One topic at a time. For logistics anomalies, we agreed to transparency in money and movement. Explain these charges and times. Notice the pattern: direct, calm, time-stamped, and standard-based. You're not chasing feelings, you're commanding clarity. And if you've been overly emotional or reactive in the past, this is your pivot. Men leak power when they turn every concern into a lecture or a meltdown. Authority is calm, authority is few words, authority is consequence after clarity. Now let me give you a 7-day reset that strengthens you no matter what you discover. Day 1. Audit your standards. Write down what you require in partnership: honesty, transparency, mutual investment, sexual connection, respect, not preferences, requirements. Day 2. Stabilize your body: sleep, hydration, training. Anxiety distorts perception. Physical stability brings cognitive clarity. Day 3. Clean communication. Choose one behavior from this list that concerns you most and use the observation timeframe impact request formula with her. Day 4. Rebuild your independent life. Cheating devastates men who have no identity beyond the relationship. Book time with your friends, recommit to your mission, and put your schedule in order. Day 5. Intimacy check. Have an honest conversation about sex without blame or pressure. Ask for her actual preferences and reveal yours. Mature intimacy is spoken, not assumed. Day 6. Social integration. Invite her to a joint plan with her friends or colleagues. Watch the reaction. Alignment leans in. Secrecy leans out. Day 7. Decision review. Based on her responses and behavior, are you moving toward repair or toward exit? Write it down. You cannot improve what you refuse to measure. There's another layer here that an average man misses: the psychology behind why affairs happen in the first place. Understanding this doesn't excuse betrayal, but it prevents you from learning the wrong lesson. Affairs feed novelty, validation, and self-expansion. They also allow people to avoid the discomfort of direct conflict. If your relationship has slowly lost polarity, masculine leadership dissolving, boundaries softening into neediness, clarity replaced by chasing, you've created a vacuum that novelty can fill. Again, this doesn't excuse cheating. It does show you where your leverage lives, in rebuilding your presence, your mission, and your standards, so the relationship either evolves with you or it disqualifies itself quickly. You're not a jailer trying to stop an escape. You're a king, ensuring that anyone who sits beside you is aligned with your vision. Let's tie the 10 behaviors together so you can feel the full picture. Sudden privacy, schedule fog, sexual volatility, emotional contempt, story inconsistencies, external reinvention with secrecy, digital hidden channels, social gatekeeping, aggressive projection, and logistics anomalies. When 3 or more form a cluster, act. When 5 or more form a cluster, you're either getting a confession soon or you're walking away clean. You don't wait months hoping for a miracle while your self-respect erodes. You gather your evidence, you present your standards, and you decide. If she meets you in truth and repair, you'll see it quickly. Transparency offered without you begging, time protected without you chasing, intimacy rebuilt through conversation, friends integrated, phones no longer weapons, and a plan for trust with endpoints. If you get delay, fog, and drama, that is your answer. Men ask me, what if I'm wrong and I ruin a good relationship? You won't ruin a good relationship by asking for clarity with respect. You ruin it by abandoning your standards and training her nervous system to believe that she can devalue you and you'll still be there. Another question. Isn't asking for transparency controlling? No. Control is about limiting another person's freedom. Standards are about clarity on what you will and will not participate in. She is free to live however she chooses. You are free to choose whether that aligns with you. That's adulthood. That's masculine. If you decide to repair after betrayal, set a time-bound trust protocol. 90 days of full disclosure about the timeline, 0 contact with the other person, health checks, a weekly honesty meeting, and temporary transparency with devices and locations if that's part of your agreement. Mark the end date and the milestones. You are not sentencing each other to surveillance for life. You're building a bridge back to trust with a finish line. If she fights every step or weaponizes privacy to hide behavior, you stop the process. Trust is a decision, but it cannot be built in darkness. If you decide to exit, exit well. No revenge, no smear campaign, no drunken late-night messages. Close your accounts cleanly, retrieve your belongings, and communicate your boundary once. This no longer aligns with my standards. I'm moving on. I wish you well. Then be about your mission. Men who obsess over the one who betrayed them burn their future to light up their past. Don't do it. Replace the obsessive loop with an obsession for improvement. Become brutally honest with yourself about where you abandoned your own standards. That's where your freedom lives. I want you to remember this sentence. Loyalty is a daily choice, not a personality trait. You're not assessing whether she's a good person. You're assessing whether her daily choices align with a loyal partnership. Good people can make disloyal choices. Your job isn't to argue with her conscience. It's to be loyal to your standards. If she returns to them, good. If she refuses, let her go. Scarcity is a lie that turns men into beggars. Abundance is a truth that turns men into leaders. A leader loses nothing by insisting on the reality he's willing to live in. Loop back with me for a moment to the beginning. That uneasy feeling, don't drown it in denial and don't inflame it with fantasy. Use it as a prompt to observe, to measure, and to ask. If you're seeing a cluster, privacy spike, investment drop, sexual volatility, contempt, inconsistent stories, move. The longer you hesitate, the more you teach your nervous system that in the presence of disrespect, you do nothing. The sooner you act, the more you build the most attractive and powerful quality a man can possess, self-trust. If you found this breakdown sharp and liberating and you want more high-caliber, research-backed strategies, that make you unignorable in your relationships and unstoppable in your mission, stay with this channel. I'm going to keep giving you the frameworks that most men never hear until it's too late. But today, you have what you need. You know what to look for. You know how to speak. You know how to decide. Protect your future, hold your standards, and let your actions, not your anxiety, define your next move.